guys, again, I'm so annoyed. So multiple people reported my last live stream and it got taken down, which is so annoying. And I think because it had the word a live stream over again, which is now, and it's like I wasn't even encouraged my opinions on it when it comes to health. So anyways, that's deleted. So everyone who was there, I'm glad we got to chat about that. I guess we'll talk about something G-rated in this video so it doesn't just end the live stream in the middle of the live stream. Why would someone report your live stream? I don't know. I think because it had the word ALCOHOL in it, and then one person reported it, so it got deleted from my channel. So weird. How extreme. I had a question, but it got cut off. You can share your question now. I'll just read your comments now. I already made my video. But I did want to talk about, I recently, one of my medications got changed. It's called Vraylar, so we like doubled the dosage, and I've been waking up so early in the morning. It's been amazing. Like last night I was up till like 4 a.m. I think, so I woke up like later today. But I've only been sleeping for 9 hours rather than 12, so it's been so nice. I was having so many problems where I was sleeping too much and it was like impossible to wake up. So I'm really grateful for this medicine. Do you know anyone with cycloclithmic disorder? I don't know how to pronounce it without the cycloclithmic part. But basically it's a chill form of bipolar where you don't have full out hypomanic episodes or depressive episodes, but it's like slight. I actually think I could have gotten diagnosed with that before my full bipolar came out. But yeah, because I read about that and I was like, oh my gosh, that describes my life so much. But I don't know. I've never known anyone who has it though. So I feel like it must be pretty rare. Or if it's not rare, it's rare that they get diagnosed. Because like, even for bipolar disorder, it takes like going to 9 different specialists to get your proper diagnosis and not just diagnosed with depression, because mania can be really chill and people don't realize it's mania. So I think if bipolar 2 is so rare to get properly diagnosed, think if it's like an even more chill form of mania. I feel like it would never get diagnosed. They would just think like, oh, you're an emotional person, you're really intense, but would not actually diagnose it. So what are you eating? Okay, so brown rice, broccoli, and carrots. And I have a secret recipe where it's not a secret recipe, but I perfected making vegetables. So I roast the broccoli and carrots in the oven at 425 degrees for 25 minutes. 425 for 25 minutes, and it roasts them perfectly, and it gets them to be crispy as well. It's so good. So I soak them in olive oil, and then I season with chili powder, garlic, not fresh garlic, but like garlic powder, salt and pepper. And then I've used brown rice too, and I had like a fake chicken meat that I put in the oven too for this yesterday. This is just leftovers. Thank you for the donation, Raul. Hi, Sunnyside, how are you? Good vegan food, yep. In Mexico, we are allowed to open next week, but a lot of cautions. That's so exciting, you're opening. You can allow... It said that there was copyrighted content in it. And we're back! Sorry about the Wi-Fi. I think I need to fix my Wi-Fi. Do you think women should be ordained? Women priests? Because there have never been women priests. And Catholicism doesn't change. So like, our core dogmas and theologies were established by Jesus and his apostles. So Jesus only chose men to be his apostles, and that's why we only have male priests. And a lot of people are like, oh, it was a sexist society at the time, that's why. No. Maybe it was a slightly sexist society at the time, but in the church was not sexist. There were female leaders in the church. There were females who were missionaries, who were preaching, who were prophesying, who were leading prayers. There were women who were ministry leaders. they just weren't priests and they didn't have the apostolic ministry. So based upon their representation in the early church, if there would have been women priests, there would have been women priests. It wasn't like only men were leading, like there were women leaders. They just weren't bishops and priests. Only men were always bishops and priests. So it's pretty easy. I mean, women have a huge role in Catholicism today. Like, we can be youth ministers, campus ministers, lectors, worship leaders, Eucharistic ministers, professors at theology departments at colleges and seminaries. It's like we can do literally everything in Catholicism besides the apostolic ministry, which Jesus chose only men to be a part of. So it doesn't offend me at all. I can do speaking events, I can do my YouTube channel, I can be interviewed by men in their ministries, I can do my own lay ministry, you know what I mean? So it's not a big deal. I'm also a campus minister. We're out of school right now, so I'm not doing that. But yeah, so I'm literally allowed to do so much as a woman, and it doesn't offend me at all. So a lot of people are like, what's your opinion on it? And it's like, I don't get to have an opinion on it. I just have to obey the church. Which video did they take out? Is it the one with Jacqueline Glenn? No. The video that got taken down was my last live stream, and I was talking about drinking and coffee and my bipolar meds. Like, that was what was in the title. So I think that's why it got taken down. But it's never happened to me in a live stream before, and it said that people reported me, which is kind of crazy. Like, yeah, I don't know what the deal is. Good evening, Lizzie. Hi. Haha, we can hear your chewing. Of course, because the audio is on. That's what a mukbang is supposed to be like. Given the situation of the pandemic, do you think that the church is going to change the way of evangelizing and living the faith all the time now? Not just if mass is closed to the public, but all the time live stream. And I mean, I started I started Zoom Bible studies with my friends, and so I'm gonna continue that even once the pandemic is over, so which could take until like the rest of the year. It's pretty chaotic, but I saw a promising article recently that said if everyone continues to wear masks in public, then basically we could prevent a second wave happening in September. So make sure to keep wearing your masks when you're walking outside, when you're at a store, when you're in groups. Just make sure to be wearing your mask. And I know that a lot of people have been seeing their friends more and hanging out with people more. So just be careful. Keep your social group that you're exposing yourself to be someone reported you about. I don't know. I think that if enough people report, then it can just be taken down if there's like enough people. But that's never happened before, so I'm not like concerned for future live streams or anything. But I think because it had the word alcohol in it and then someone reported it, that's why. But I don't know. Who knows why it happened. It is rumored that Pope John Paul I was going to ordain women and allow priests to marry. Have you heard of that? That would have been impossible because the Pope's job is to protect the teaching authority of the church and to protect the apostolic teachings that have always been there. So if he was going to do that and then died, it was like divine that God allowed him to die. Like, God killed him, basically. You know what I mean? Like, obviously God didn't like kill him, but it's like something else in the past. So like Cyprian was fighting with the Pope really bad, and this book I was reading about the popes was saying if he hadn't died, it could have caused like a huge rift and the church might have left church teaching. And it's like, yeah, so he died. Like, God allowed that to happen providentially. And so if Pope John Paul I was trying to ordain women, it was providential that he died so that that wouldn't happen, because there never will be female priests. And again, that doesn't offend me in any way. I'm eating lunch. I have a Greek salad. That sounds good. Crucifixes keep vampires away. Keep safe, Lizzie. What did you think of the Vagana letter to Trump? One of my friends was telling me about it, but I didn't. It's soothing. It's more peaceful and reflective and contemplative. So I think that's why people really enjoy it a lot. What hate speech in scriptures? Others not accepting reality? Thank you for answering. I heard that YouTube hates the word challenge in videos. Please keep making them, and for some reason they get taken down. Challenge? But people do like the cinnamon challenge or yoga challenge or like military training challenge. You know what I mean? Like the type of challenges people do are like the most G-rated things. So that's so weird. I mean, I don't do challenge videos that often, so I guess that means like I'll be safe and fine and everything. Hi, Caitlin. Crucifixes, we already read that. Hazy, can you talk about what it means? Say, what is the definition of good works? So the definition of good is God's grace working in us through righteous actions. So it's God's grace that saves us, not our actions. But our actions are intertwined with God's grace. God's grace isn't this like abstract concept coming from over here that like up in heaven that's saving us. It's like in our souls, intertwined in our innermost beings is God's grace. And then we're doing righteous actions because we're leaning into his love and he's working in us. So anytime someone does a righteous action, it's because God is living in them doing that action. So like even atheists who don't know God, like I said in my video that was just uploaded an hour ago, the Jacqueline Glenn cringe video, I said even Jacqueline Glenn worships God through her actions because any righteous action that any human does is because of God's power and God's grace in them. So I hope that makes sense that also we view faith and actions as intertwined. So we view faith not as just like an intellectual assent to an idea, but faith is empowering actions to God. So there's no distinction between faith and works because faith, works, God's grace are all intertwined and the same thing. So I hope that helps. I know it can be really confusing when you grew up Protestant because we're taught to separate everything. Like faith is over here, works are over here, grace is up in heaven, but really everything's together working in our souls. The traditional Latin Mass is considered by traditional Catholics to be the true Mass as opposed to the Novus Ordo. Not everyone is that extreme and thinks that, but definitely some people. Come meet Brazil. I will definitely go to Brazil at some point. The ice bucket challenge, yeah. Did you guys do the ice bucket challenge? I did. I remember one of my friends who was there was so annoyed because she didn't know that the ice bucket was coming. Like we were doing a video of the ice bucket challenge. I was like a campus ministry intern with my church, so we were all working together, and it was part of like our intern team bonding that we did the ice bucket challenge together. So they had towels and everything for us, so it wasn't like that horrible or anything. Some people didn't find it safe to do. That's funny. Hi, Lizzie. I'm late. Why are you giving up coffee? So I don't want to be reliant on any like non-psychotic drugs, basically. And I've noticed that I sleep better, I wake up better when there's not caffeine in my system. I'm just really sensitive to it, and I used to drink. So I have like a French press, which is 32 ounces, and I used to make 32 ounces a day and then put in like a giant tumbler and drink it. And I realized recently how much coffee I was drinking. So I've been reducing and reducing and reducing, and the past few days I've woken up like full of energy because I upped my dosage of Vraylar, which is one of my antipsychotics. And so it's been helping my circadian rhythms get in sync so well that I actually have energy when I wake up in the morning. And I think that if anyone's like, it's one thing if you're addicted to coffee, but it's another thing where you're not eating enough glucose and enough carbohydrates, and so your body is using coffee as an appetite suppressant and as like a primary energy source, when really you should be getting your energy from food. And so if I feel sluggish in the morning, which I don't anymore, I wake up full of energy, I don't even need coffee, but if I feel sluggish during the day, then it's probably because I'm not eating enough carbs and I'm under eating, and I'm actually underweight right now. So I think this will be a great thing. Like if I start feeling low energy in the middle of the day, eat more food, eat more carbs, that should be fueling you. And so I think because it's an appetite suppressant too, I just think we shouldn't be drinking like a ton of appetite suppressants. And I've even gotten in the habit where like, so I love work. I'm like addicted to work. I love video editing. I love researching. I love writing my scripts. And so I'll wake up and like immediately start working and not like go and spend like 15 minutes cooking a good meal and eating and everything. So now, rather than postponing food for a couple hours. So yeah, I've been drinking huge smoothies, making really good lunches, and forcing myself to just eat regular food rather than like sipping on coffee throughout the morning and stuff. So yeah, I feel like if we're eating enough food and we're not in depression, we should have the energy throughout the day to not need coffee. So I just feel like it's like for my health to not be reliant on coffee anymore. And I really like coffee. So I'm sure I'll drink it sometimes, but it's not going to be like an everyday 32 ounces of coffee thing. Maybe like 1 cup of coffee sometimes, you know? And if I ever wake up in depression, then I can drink coffee, and that'll definitely help me a lot. Drink decaf. Yes! I was literally thinking of that too. But I love this one coffee I have from Trader Joe's, and I don't know, like I'd have to find a different decaf coffee that I like, and I really love the Trader Joe's one. So I'll also save money because oat milk is so expensive. So I feel like it'll be a positive thing. Okay. Hi, Lizzie. How do you react to people bashing the church? So I think it's really important to not get offended and not get sensitive towards other people, because I used to be the person who was bashing the Catholic Church. I just kept my mouth shut and wasn't going around bashing the church, but internally I felt the same as people who come to me today and are bashing the church. So I'm away and used to bash the church, and it's no one's fault. Like, we're grown up being taught these things, like Catholics worship the Pope. Catholics are doing idolatry. They're worshiping people in heaven. They're worshiping bones. They're worshiping icons. Like, they grow up hearing all these things that are horrible. Like, if it were true that Catholics are worshiping relics and worshiping icons, and that's blasphemous, lies of things we do that would be blasphemous if it was true. So that's why people hate it, and I think it's important to just be patient with people, and ultimately, like, people are gonna remember how you make them fat, and that is like our best bet to converting them into the church, responding with gentle. And we're back. Sorry about the internet. I think before you lived in LA, you had the LA accent. Yeah, that's totally true. Everyone thought that I was either from LA or Orange County when I moved to California for college. Like, everyone thought I was from California. So I feel like very at home. They weren't sharing it with their children. They weren't doing home Bible studies. They weren't praying together. They weren't reading theology books. They weren't discussing theology. They didn't have theology training in any way. So I think it's pretty easy to pass on the faith to your children. Like, it requires a ton of effort, but if you're really close to God and really passionate about theology, it should be easy to pass on the faith. You just talk about things that you're passionate about and be talking about theology all the time and reading the Bible together and explaining arguments for the Pope and arguments for the Fellowship of the Saints and arguments for the Eucharist. Like, give them age-appropriate books to read on theology as they're growing up, and then they won't leave the church. And I think we need to be on guard against Protestant arguments as well. Like, address all the Protestant arguments about like sola scriptura and saved by faith alone, and why are you worshiping Mary, and why is there church art when the Bible is against church art, So just addressing all the Bible verses, like call no man father. Like, there's so many Mary having a painful birth, Mary being a perpetual virgin. Like, there's so many things that people look at in the Bible and they're like, this is clearly against Catholicism. So go through all those things with your children. Like, that's what I'm gonna do. Like, my children will not leave Catholicism, and if they do, it won't be because of lack of knowledge. It'll be because they want to just live out worldly ways and not obey the church ethics. Like, it won't be because of lack of knowledge. So a Zoom Bible study with Lizzie would be cool. You can join mine if you want. We're starting in a couple hours. I have an example I use for faith and works. Yes, gentleness. I wouldn't join a group of people whose members insult me. Yeah, that's a really good thing to say. I don't like the taste of coffee, so I drink matcha tea. It gives a calm energy rather than a jittery energy. We answered that question. Decaf coffee has the chemical that they put in. Hi, Carol. Emily has a question, but I don't see her question. Why don't you comment it again? I'm on my phone, so I don't see all the comments. Lower the video quality? I don't think I'm able to do that on here. Save highlights, mute microphone, share. And then I have that. The 39th anniversary of Medjugorje is coming soon. Can you make a video about it? I'm like very torn about Medjugorje because like Patrick Hoffman made a video saying that it's fake, but then I know people who've had like life-changing spiritual experiences there, so I feel like I'm just not going to talk about it. Like, that's how I'm going to solve the discrepancy, because I feel like if I talk about it, I might hurt people. So that's just my opinion. Viewers can lower video quality to help with connection. Oh, okay, that makes sense. What to do about a boyfriend who is too scared to face calling a doctor for evaluation of what I believe is bipolar 2. So probably your relationship is not going to work out, just because if someone denies their mental illness, and I literally receive hundreds of messages of these situations, and the people who deny their diagnosis, refuse to go on medicine, consistently go off their medicine, it's a failed relationship. It's not going to work. Because what happens with bipolar is we'll impulsively break up with you if the detachment starts up, which is just like a symptom of depression, but it can happen on its own too, even when you're manic, where you just lose all feeling for someone out of nowhere and break up and never talk to them again. Like, that will happen over and over and over again, and it will not stop happening until they realize they are bipolar and research it and everything. So if he's not even open to researching it or to go talk to a specialist, messages of people who all have these horrible experiences. Someone keeps commenting about self-harm. This will literally get the video taken down. We can't talk about topics like that in the video. Obviously, it's horrible. I have a close friend who did that a lot and was also wanting to take her life, and I've seen the scars, and it's really, really sad to me and triggering even. Like, I don't like looking at stuff like that because it reminds me of what she went through and what caused her to do that. So it's horrific, it's really sad, it can become addicting, and yeah, I mean, I feel like everyone, horrible thing, it's really sad. People need to go to therapy to help them with it. They probably need medicine for their depression as well. Would also really help with the self-harm and everything. What were your philosophy theology courses like? I just got into seminary. I've been away from school for 8 years. Not sure if I can study or take notes properly anymore. So our philosophy programs were basically, do reading before class and then come to class and debate the reading. So it was all class discussions, no lecture. Sometimes it depended on the class. Like for our logic class, when you learn how to do like analytical logic and logical fallacies, that was a lecture class. But pretty much for everything else, we would like sit in a circle and just debate each other and argue and present our opinions. Sometimes we would do class presentations. I think for ethics there was a lecture, but for pretty much every other class it was a circle class where you just talk, and it was really, really fun. So philosophy is like completely different than all other classes in how the class is taught. And yeah, because most classes I feel like there's some discussion, but the professor is teaching you. And in philosophy, you help educate and teach each other based upon the readings. So you have to do the readings basically, or you're not going to have fun in class. And class is really fun. I think my favorite thing is that in ancient philosophy and modern philosophy, we read like Plato, Aristotle, Descartes, Kant, people like that. And for our assignments, we would have the reading, and then we'd have to put it into an analytical philosophy structure. So like hypothetical syllogism, modus ponens, stuff like that. And then we would give our opinion on it. So we would be like, this premise is wrong, or this doesn't follow, and then share what we think about it. So I thought that was really fun, converting the reading into our analytical logic. So it was really fun, and I think it permanently changes the way you dialogue with people, because you start seeing logical fallacies in people who you're talking with like all the time. So that's kind of the sad part about it. I miss going to the movies with friends and family. Okay. Sorry, Lizzie, I removed the comments. Instead, what do you think about Carmelite Life? Thank you for removing them. I don't know that much about that order in particular. We never did that in any of my philosophy classes. It was lecture debates. It was lecture-based, no debates at all. So we were in an analytical philosophy department. Catholicism tends to not be pro-analytical philosophy. So it doesn't surprise me that at a Catholic school, you were not analytical philosophy. So analytical philosophy, there's analytical and continental. I feel like we could spend an hour explaining this distinction, and I feel like you still might not understand it. But analytical philosophy has to do with analytical logic and putting everything in mathematical logic formulas. And continental philosophy is where you do more of like a literature-based take on it. So if you're reading, like a really good example is I was in a political philosophy class in the poli-sci department, and we read Plato, and it was more of a lecture. But when we read Plato in a philosophy class, in analytical philosophy, it was only a discussion. So if you've ever done a great books class, that's not analytical, it's continental, the way you discuss things. It's more like a literature class than a philosophy class. So I'm really grateful the way our department was and everything. I thought it was so much fun, and you got really close to everyone in the classes too, because you talk to each other so much. What is your favorite saint? I have so many favorite saints. I really like Chrysostom a lot. I love Augustine. I like Jerome. I like, my patron saint is Irenaeus right now. I love Archbishop Fulton Sheen, who's not officially a saint yet, but I like his writings a lot. So yeah, there's so many saints, and I like how there are so many commentaries to the Bible and so many things to read. And actually, I don't know if it's going to be my next video or the video after. I filmed a lot last night, but I have a video where I'm unboxing the Bishop Barron Word on Fire Bible, and it's like a church father Bible where he gets a lot of like ancient and modern theologians giving commentary in the book. And he includes like all of my favorite people are in the book, so I was really, really excited about that. Love. I moved to a different part of my apartment, so I hope that this works better. Let's see. She can't control the ads that pop up on her videos, correct? I actually can, though, specifically choose companies that I don't want to advertise on my channel. So if you DM me on Twitter or Instagram, I can choose to not have certain ads. So I've actually chosen by category. So, for example, I don't allow the Mormon Church to advertise on my videos. I don't like them. I also got rid of Planned Parenthood. I don't like scary movies. I know this is like really G-rated, but I got rid of beer ads and like violent movies. So not scary movies, but like violent movies. So that's gone. So actually, I've spent a lot of time curating what type of ads show up in my videos. But obviously, like, you have to tell me if there's a certain ad you see. If I see an inappropriate ad on my video, I'll go get rid of it. But obviously ads depend on like what you're saying and what you're Googling and stuff. So I think that if you see an ad like that on my video, you should actually be asking yourself, what was I saying during the day that gave me this ad? Like, it's curated based upon you, not me, if that makes sense. Hey Lizzie, I was baptized, confirmed, and received the Eucharist on Thursday! Congratulations, that's so exciting! Having grown up evangelical, thank you for all that you do here. You were a huge help for me. Oh, that makes me so happy. Hi sister, I'm from the Philippines. I hope you're able to notice my presence right now. Are you planning to have a formal discussion with Jacqueline Glenn? Have you been willing to engage with her? I am willing to. She's seen my video. I don't know if she's seen all of them, but she saw one video and did not reach out to me at all. She gets so many DMs on Instagram and Twitter, so I think she doesn't want a dialogue, but I should directly reach out to her on Twitter or Instagram, and maybe she'll see it. We'll see. I did challenge her in my video, if she watches it, for her to read The Resurrection of the Son of God by N.T. Wright, and then I'll read Richard Dawkins' book. What are your thoughts on separation of church and state? Should public schools be secular? So I think because we have so many different religions in the US, including people who are not religious, I think it's important to have a public school option, especially because private school can be so expensive. Even homeschooling is a huge luxury if only one parent needs to work to support the family. Usually, based upon our current economy, both parents have to work. So if one person has a good enough job, then it's a luxury. So for the average person, we need public school. But if you really do want to do private school based upon your religion, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. Also, I know in California particularly, I did a video with Jackie Angel and she was explaining that she's homeschooling her kids and she gets money from the government that would have gone to their school into her family because they're homeschooling. So I think the government should do things like that, where if you're not using public school, you should get money to go towards your private school or towards your homeschool. I think that's the best option that's fair for everyone. Okay. Thank you for noticing me. I'm a big fan of yours. Aww. Imagine watching your vids and getting an ad for Mormonism. That would be amazing. I know, that's why I got rid of it. I was like, I don't want people to become Mormon. I want them to become Catholic. So recently, Bishop Barron was advertising on my videos his Catholicism series, and I was like, yes, you got the demographics right. I've also been getting so many ads from Biden and Trump. Have you guys too? Biden has this really cringy ad, and he's like, hello, I'm Joe Biden. I'd like you to join my campaign. It's gonna be really hard to beat Donald Trump, but nothing is worth fighting for that isn't hard. And it's just such a bad ad, like he's stuttering, and that means that was the best take, where he's like, I'd like you to join my campaign. It's just really funny. So love your Bible studies. Thank you. Don't waste your time reading Richard Dawkins. That guy is full of nonsense. Yeah, the only reason I would read it is if Jacqueline Glenn agreed to read all 800 pages of the resurrection of the Son of God. Then I would read Richard Dawkins if she actually told me she was going to read all 800 pages, which I don't think she's going to do. I understand that faith and good works can't be separated, but since that's the case, what's the difference between the Catholic teaching and saved by faith alone? Opinions on 100 different genders. I've talked about this a lot, but I personally believe that everyone, when it comes to sexuality and even gender, like how you, obviously biological sex is set, but gender, like how you express yourself, I believe everything is on a spectrum. And so my thing is just be content to be on the spectrum. You don't need to define every millimeter of the spectrum, but people feel like they need to, which is fine. That's not personally affecting me in any way. So yeah, I disagree with it. I think that you should just be content with the gray areas, and I think people in the US are very black and white and they need everything spelled out and defined, so that's why it's happening like that. But yeah, I think it's unnecessary, but that's just me. So other people, if they really want to, can get into that. Hey Lizzie, big fan. I'm Catholic and also have a physical disability. I'm thinking of starting a YouTube channel focusing on disabilities in the church. Any advice? Aw, yeah, DM me on Twitter or Instagram. I have a video on how to start a YouTube channel. It's from like forever ago, but it's really good advice. So I can dialogue with you and help you set it up if you want to, and we can collab too, because bipolar is a disability, so we can talk about our disabilities in the church. I live in Southgate. In late August, early September, I should have a van. What does that mean? Who reported your live stream? I don't know. I love your shirt, Lizzie. Thank you. I think it's really cute too. Lizzie, how do you reconcile original sin and evolution? I do believe in evolution, but I don't really know how that fits with the creation and the fall. So basically, you have to believe as Catholics that there were two first parents. In the story of Adam and Eve, after Cain kills Abel, after I almost said Abel left, but like Abel's dead. After Cain kills Abel, oh my goodness. After Cain kills Abel, Cain leaves and goes and finds a wife where other people are. So clearly Adam and Eve were not the only people. There were other people elsewhere. And so I don't think it presents a problem with evolution in any way. Like, what is your specific problem? And even scientists today have been saying that there were two first parents. But even if they were saying something different, it wouldn't really matter because there's other people elsewhere. So I hope that helps you. How old were you when you started having bipolar symptoms? As an infant. Bipolar people as infants are very colicky and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry and cry. So I think if one of my children is bipolar, I'll be able to tell from when they're like a young age. So I'm really torn on whether or not I want my kid to be bipolar, because I don't know, I feel like it would be great to be able to help someone through that, and I would feel so understood and they would feel so understood. But also it's like a lot of hell you have to go through to be bipolar, and there's a huge suicide rate. So I don't know, I'm kind of like back and forth on whether or not I would want my kid to have it. What are people disagreeing about? I love your shirt, very pretty. Thank you. I think my 12-year-old daughter might be. Interesting. Yeah, you can definitely tell. I mean, I would just take her to a psychiatrist. So one thing that is really common is change in temperature. So you'll get like really, really, really hot, and then like shivers, and then really hot when you're manic, and then cold when you're in depression. So I remember I would literally fight with my mom over the air conditioning because it was so hot and it was affecting me so much because I was manic. And then something else is sleeping like 12 to 15 hours straight. If you could just sleep and sleep and sleep for long periods of time, that's also like a childhood sign of bipolar. I should make a video of childhood signs of bipolar. That would be interesting. I disagree with your view on Black Lives Matter. So here's the thing. There is an organization called Black Lives Matter, which you can disagree with some of their views. I disagree with some of their views. Then there are Black Lives Matter, and you want to make sure that minorities, especially blacks, do not get shot by police at a much higher rate than whites. I mean, we don't want anyone shot by the police who doesn't deserve it, obviously, but especially Black lives, we have to focus on them so much right now because their community is hurting and wounded and mourning, and I mean, I'm mourning too. So I think there's definitely a distinction between the Black Lives Matter organization and everyone else is saying Black Lives Matter. So I hope that makes sense. You are, I mean, unless you're racist, you are for Black Lives Matter. So I don't understand what you mean, like you disagree with Black Lives Matter, because we're literally saying like Black Lives Matter too. And historically, it hasn't shown. But I really recommend watching this movie called The 13th. It's really, really good. How open and honest do you plan on being with your future children about your bipolar and mental health in general? So I think I'm going to tell them from a very young age, and honestly, I have to be off my meds when I'm pregnant, and so probably they're going to see me at my worst when they're young, and it's just going to be like, oh, mom is sleeping for 12 hours today, or like, oh, mom is going to her monthly therapist appointments, or oh, mom is up till 3 a.m. today. So I think it'll be really normal to them, and they won't even realize that other people's moms are different. So I think in that sense, it'll be pretty easy to explain to them, and I think what'll be kind of sad is I'll explain to them, like, maybe don't tell your friends or their families that I'm bipolar because it has such a stigma. So I'll probably tell them, like, it's fine to be bipolar, but it's also a negative thing. So I can just imagine them saying, like, yeah, my mom's bipolar at school, and then people thinking that's really weird or something. So I'd probably tell them to keep it more secret, but honestly, if I have a YouTube channel, then everyone knows. I think Black people's lives matter, but doesn't the BLM group leadership include mostly Marxists? I honestly haven't researched that much into the political lobbying group. What matters the most is spreading information about systemic racism. If a person has bipolar and while manic acts in a way that is sexually imprudent because they can't control their sexual impulses due to the bipolar, is birth control permissible for that person to use? Talk to a priest. And go on antipsychotics. Antipsychotics kick in within less than a week. There's no excuses. Like, zero excuses. So, obviously, if you're off meds at the moment or can't afford medication, that's an excuse. But if you're having these hypersexuality symptoms, just go on meds. It's so easy. Is gender being a spectrum a Catholic perspective? Doesn't it teach that it's binary? Biological sex is binary. We're supposed to accept our biological sex. So I'm not saying that you should accept your gender on a spectrum 4.6 on the 4.637 on the gender spectrum and then think that's like your new gender. Like you're supposed to accept your biological sex, but it's just objective that gender's on a spectrum. Do you know what I mean? I don't mean gender. I mean like displays of gender. So for example, I'm very girly, I wear makeup, but I'm a very assertive person and I'm horrible at emotions. Like I suck at emotional support. I have empathy, but I have very masculine features. A lot of my personality. Like I don't think with my emotions, I'm too analytical. It's just, I have masculine features. And that doesn't mean that I'm a man. It doesn't mean that I need to transition, but it just means that on the gender spectrum, I'm not like 100% feminine. That doesn't mean that I'm not a woman at all. So gender expression is probably what you are looking for. Yeah, that's what I meant. I thought it was obvious that that's what I was talking about, but yeah, and I mean, gender is kind of a human construct based upon, like, evolution and stuff, and, you know, God intended there to be two genders and everything, but obviously, like, the expression is on a spectrum, just like how sexuality is on a spectrum. That's another thing. Trans ideology also big in Black Lives Matter leadership for some reason. Yeah, that's interesting. It's important to just not get distracted by Black Lives Matter leadership and keep talking about Black lives and Black people and what they have to endure living in this country. Also, someone was lynched last night. Did you guys hear about this? I saw it on Twitter. They think it was a suicide, but someone was like, ugh, I don't even want to talk about it. It was so horrific. But they were found like on a tree with a rope and like their neck in front of the city commissioner or mayor's office or something, the state office, some political government building. They were lynched. So yeah, just Google it and I'm sure it'll come up. I read it this morning. I'm horrible at names, so I forgot the state and everything. But if you could totally get rid of your bipolar disorder, would you? No. I really like being bipolar and I get rid of as much as I want to with medication. So it really doesn't bother me taking pills at night. It's fine. Lizzie, do you feel we are at the end times? No. Every generation ever thinks they're at the end times and they're really not at the end times. Did you see the successful rocket launch a week or so back? I prayed for them to safely make it to the ISS. Russia has their launch pads blessed by an Orthodox priest before use. That's really sweet. The priest blesses the rocket. I got rid of my TV. Why? Did you just sell it or something? That's interesting. Lizzie, when I was in middle school, my school had an entire cathedral on campus that was named after St. Teresa of Lisieux. Inside the altar was a part of her body, I think foot. Wow, that's so cool. You like being bipolar? Yes. This is true. Everyone thinks they're in the end times. Sorry for having missed your live streams for a while. My account got lost. Alexander is back. That's crazy. Yeah, you haven't been here in a while. The rocket launch money could have helped people. Okay, so I actually have a really informed opinion on NASA and everything. So a lot of inventions in the world, like an example is Invisalign, some things for surgeries. This is basically when I was in high school, I was in an international debate tournament talking about NASA and money going into NASA and space and everything. And we determined that all the money was worth it because it created, through the research they did, it created so many inventions that help people like surgically in everyday life, in the medical field, like with food, with health, with so many things. It creates so many inventions that it pays for itself. So like, does that make sense? That so many inventions come out of it through the research? I hope that makes sense. So in that sense, maybe like you think in the moment right now we should be putting it towards COVID testing. But I like thinking of things in a long-term perspective just because I used to be very utilitarian and like ends justify the means, like what's the best thing immediately to help us. And that's horrible. So you should be thinking like what's the virtuous thing to do? And I think in this sense, it seems like in the moment the best thing is computers were invented for war games during the Cold War. Okay, thank you. I can't think of specific examples because this was when I was 17 and I'm about to be 26, so it was like almost a decade ago when I was researching this, but there were so many crazy examples of really cool things that were invented and stuff. So I think in a long-term perspective, it's really important. War does that too. When you burn votive candles on your altar, do you just leave them there? I always blow out candles when I'm leaving the room. What is your view on cigarettes and Catechism of the Church? It's not a mortal sin, but obviously I think it's sinful because you're harming your body. So like if you are addicted to smoking, you are allowed to receive the Eucharist. But I actually don't know what the Catechism says on it specifically. Do vegans eat honey? Technically you're not supposed to. Some vegans do. I just eat agave instead of honey. I think it tastes better. It's less sticky. It's more ethical. So just eat agave instead. It's really easy. I think that view of gender expression is kind of subjective, especially from culture to culture. Of course, it's super gray area. It's really subjective. How many sex exists? there's XX and XY. So there's 2 biological sexes. I feel what's going on. And then there's intersex, which is a birth defect. I feel like what's going on with COVID-19 and now riots and are having bad effects on people's mental health. Absolutely, like so many people have had really bad anxiety and depression thinking about racism and just being stuck inside all the time. So I really want the country to open up for sure. It really annoys me that a lot of people in the church have made an idol out of politics. So many people conform the teachings of the church to their party's platform. I think it's divisive and blasphemous. I totally agree. Like, the places where more conservative, politically minded Catholics dissent from church teaching are like capital punishment. And then the place where liberal, politically minded Catholics dissent from church teaching are homosexuality or abortion. So literally, the place where people are heretics is them trying to align themselves completely with the political party. So I think that's really, really interesting. I think people are using George Floyd as an excuse to take stuff from Target. Yeah, and it's mostly white people. Like, I'm serious. I've been following a lot of the videos on Twitter, and I mean, obviously people of all races are stealing and stuff, but I feel like it's people who don't even care about Black Lives Matter and are just using the movement to steal and destroy things. Although people destroying things is like genuine righteous anger about the situation. So I'm much more empathetic towards setting police cars on fire and breaking things than stealing. If it's gonna be on a spectrum of what's the worst in the situation, I would say stealing is definitely the worst. My mental health has been absolute trash the last 2 weeks. Look at Revelation 12:9. Do you have relics of saints? Yes. I gave my relic to my boyfriend. So it's a St. Augustine relic that I was given, but it's his patron saint, so I was like, you can have the relic. But if we get married in the future, then it'll be my relic again, so I wasn't really giving it away. Do you know that altar candles have to contain beeswax? What? I just learned that. They're not vegan. Okay, I'm gonna screenshot this. Ways I'm not fully vegan. That's really interesting. Okay, so in the early church, I was reading this book on like rites of initiation, so like RCIA stuff in the 1st and 2nd centuries. I was reading that part of a book, and it was talking about how they ate milk and honey after baptism. Like in the 2nd century, they were given milk and honey, which I thought was so interesting. And I was thinking, like, what if they did that today and I'm vegan? Like, I would have to drink milk, and I would, because it was part of the church's sacrament. Like, what if veganism was against wine or something, and you have to, I guess, well, then you could just eat the host. But let's say, like, it wasn't vegan, the bread and wine that we consecrate to Jesus, if it wasn't vegan, then I would say that it's not vegan anymore after consecration. I mean, it's not, you guys know what I mean? If it was made of non-vegan food, it wouldn't be that anymore once it is transubstantiated into Jesus. It's just the, Lizzie, can you please check your Instagram messages? I need your help, please. I just checked my Instagram messages today and was replying to a lot of people, so I'm sorry I didn't see your message. Message me again, and then you'll get to, like, the top. Should the Pope get back to papal states? I don't know my thoughts on that. There's been riots all over the world, mostly in Europe. It isn't even about Floyd at all. It's about racism going on in every country. That's the thing. It's never been about just the police shooting. It's the tip of the iceberg of all the racism people have to endure throughout their lives, especially in the criminal justice system, in education, personal racism people experience. One of the people I follow on Instagram, Afro-Catholic, he has a pretty big account and was sharing personal racist incidents that have happened to him where people have called him the N-word and said, like, I'm not hiring you because you're black, stuff like that. So I posted a video on my Instagram story, and it was talking about as well how if you are Black, you're less likely to get a house loan than a white family, even if you're richer than the white family, because of how they drew the like city lines, like city boundaries. They intentionally did it, the property developers, so that neighborhoods that were traditionally Black neighborhoods were seen as not as good value. And it wasn't even based upon wealth or anything. They just like arbitrarily drew lines in a lot of cities. There's like a term for it. So just a lot of different types of racism going on in our country, and the police shootings are just, obviously that's something that's just so atrocious and evil that it gets this like visceral anger reaction out of everyone. And there is racism, just not like some places. I mean, I wonder how bad it is in Europe compared to the US. We have such a long history of slavery, and it caused so many redlining. Yeah, I posted that on my Instagram story. You might have known before me though. Belgium, Sweden, France, and the UK have had mass riots and are classed as the most progressive liberal nations in the world. Yeah, I honestly don't know enough about their countries. I know that a lot of countries in Europe have really great criminal justice systems. So like the war on drugs was like objectively really racist. And so they probably don't have a war on drugs because they have a rehabilitation system when someone is addicted to a drug or selling a drug. So Montreal, Canada had a riot. I'm currently working with my local police department to have them do an instruction on how to behave when being detained by the police. I feel that is part of the problem. Milk and honey is still a big deal about celebrating stuff like that in Eastern rites. Also, Byzantine can't just eat the host. Yeah, that's true. That's true. In Byzantine, they dip the bread into the wine. So... Jesus is a human, which is a kind of animal, so you're eating. Okay, you guys, I love you so much. I'm going to go. I'll see you in my next video.